It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
I'd like to invite the children forward for the children's message. I see at least a couple coming up. Brave souls, come on up. We're going to gather around the baptismal font today. If you want to come over here and stand. I think there's someone coming. We're going to wait just a second. Come on up and gather around here in the baptismal font. Well, good morning to all of you. You know, it was just a few weeks ago when Pastor Craig had you at this baptismal font as well for the children's sermon. You remember that? You do? Cool. You did splash water on your face. Well, you had a chance to do that again today. So he talked about God's gift of water. God's gift of water. And then that baptism is kind of like God pouring love on us in that water. Okay? Today's gospel text contains another piece that is common within our service of holy baptism. And you might have recognized those words when it said, let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Okay? And so that's also a very common thing in our service of holy baptism that you might have remembered or recognized when you've heard somebody getting baptized up here. Okay? So, let your light so shine. What do you think that means? Or what could be something that you might do to let your light shine, that would show your light shine? Yes? When other people fall, you help them. Very good. Anything else? Letting your light shine. So that's very good, because what you're doing is you're showing God's love to others at that point. And that is letting Christ's light shine through you. So when you hear those words, let your light so shine, it is letting the light of Christ shine through you, showing God's love to other people. Okay? So I have something for you this morning. So I have a bunch of these. And we're going to turn them on this morning, so everybody can have one with a little switch at the bottom. You can turn that on. Okay, there's one for you. Good thing, and there's a reason they're not real flames. And you're absolutely right. Okay, so everyone gets a light this morning. Okay. There you got it. Now, as I'm passing out this light, other than it being light, what do you see on this? Do you see anything on that light? Yes, there's words. There are words. Can somebody read what that says? God loves you. So when we let our light shine, we let other people know that God loves you. Okay? We can show that to us. Now we're going to practice that this morning, okay? So I need you to all come over here to the middle. And we're going to And I'm going to count to 3, and then we're going to say, God loves you. Now, I know in church, you are usually told to use your quiet inside voices. For the next few seconds, you're all excused for that. Okay? We're going to go ahead and shout it out so that people in the back can hear it. Ready? I'm going to count to 3, and then we're going to all say, God loves you, in your big, bold, outdoor voice. Okay? Ready? Are you all ready? 1, 2, 3. God loves you. Right. Did you hear that in the back? Is that okay? Okay. I think you passed on the first time around. So remember, as you're going back to your pews, now we're switching back to indoor voices now. Okay. All right. As you go back to your pews, it's okay if you show a little light to some people on the way back to sit with your family, and just point to the words and tell them God loves you. Okay? Go let your light shine. Thanks for coming up. Let your light so shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Such familiar words as I mentioned from the service of Holy Baptism. A lighted candle commonly given to the newly baptized with the words, let your light so shine, symbolizing a calling or a responsibility as a child of God to share the good news of Jesus Christ with others. It is a symbol of the grace of God shining through us as baptized children of God. But today I'd like to focus on 2 phrases that came before these words of letting your light so shine. Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. I have to wonder what was going through the minds of the disciples when they heard these words for the first time. To set the scene, at the beginning of chapter 5, Matthew states, seeing the crowds, Jesus went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him. Now mountains, according to the Gospel of Matthew, mountains are common sites for significant events. You see, at the time, mountaintops were viewed as being closer to God than the heavens. Think about some significant Old Testament lessons that are associated with mountains. How about Mount Sinai and the 10 Commandments? Or Mount Ararat and Noah's Ark? Or perhaps Mount Moriah, where Abraham took Isaac? In this text, according to the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus had gone up the mountain. This was significant. The anticipation the disciples must have had. What is Jesus going to tell us? What significant thing is he really going to say or do? Jesus sat down and began teaching. First, the Beatitudes, as we heard in last week's sermon. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Then Jesus continued in this same Sermon on the Mount, saying to his disciples, you are the salt of the earth. Now today, we think of salt as just some common seasoning for our food. But did Jesus really bring his disciples up to this mountain? And was this significant event some kind of cooking lesson for seasoning our food? Well, no. You see, in Jesus' time, salt had a lot more meaning and a lot more value. Salt was indeed a seasoning, but it was also used as a disinfectant for medical purposes, and was also used as a preservative for their food. Salt preserved their well-being and preserved their food supply. But for the salt to be useful at all, it must first be applied, and it must be spread. Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth. Perhaps meaning you are to be applied and spread as you preserve Jesus' teachings. You are the light of the world. When we hear these words, we may think back to that service of Holy Baptism and the lighting of the candle. We might focus on the word light. And this time when I was studying the gospel text, my eyes focused more on the words of the world. You see, in our world, we have the light of the sun. The sun at the center of our solar system provides that light to us, and without that light, we would live in total darkness. But that same sun provides much more than just light. That sun provides us with warmth. It could provide a little bit more warmth out there today, but it does provide us with warmth. And the sun allows the plants and the trees to grow, for without those, we have no food. Without that light of our world, we have no brightness and no warmth and no food. Jesus says, you are the light of the world, a light to brighten someone's darkness, a light to provide warmth for someone, and a light to feed others with the love of Jesus. Today's gospel text is a call to action, a call to be salt and light, to let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Now we may need to be a little bit careful on our understanding of the words good works in this passage. These good works that are referred to are the light of Christ shining through us, and not any personal merits or recognition for ourselves. My Lutheran Study Bible footnote stated this quite well when it said, good works are meant to lead others to glorify our Heavenly Father, not to bring praise to the one who does them. We can also see this in our Old Testament lesson today. Fasting at that time was one task or a work following the law to earn points for salvation. However, Isaiah says, look, you fast, or you follow details of the law, only to quarrel and to fight with each other. Isaiah challenges if fasting, while having such type of conflict, is really what pleases God. Rather, Isaiah puts fasting into an action form when he speaks of offering your food to the hungry, your clothing to the needy, your shelter to the homeless, in order to be a light in the darkness. This is the fulfillment of the law. Just as Jesus said, I came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law. Isaiah provides a call to action, a call to love one another, a call to evangelize. All right, there it is. Evangelize. It's that dreaded E word. So I don't know if Pastor Craig talked to any of you about critiquing my sermon today. But if he did, I'm guessing I can already see some of the feedback. Okay? Dave was doing okay until he mentioned the word evangelism. Then I became a little uncomfortable. Is that discomfort our bushel basket that is covering our light, or a loss of saltiness? What is it about that word evangelism that makes some of us, or most of us, or almost all of us, a little uncomfortable? Is it a possible association with a TV evangelist, or someone yelling on the street corner through a megaphone? You know, one biblical scholar suggested that we just change the word to address that possible feeling. Instead of evangelism, we should just call it good newsism. After all, the word evangelical simply means good news. Or is the discomfort perhaps related to the possibility of the other person saying no? That potential of a feeling of rejection. Perhaps a better question is, what if the other person says yes? Or is the discomfort perhaps related to the size of the task at hand? After all, there are still billions of people in this world who need to hear the gospel. Well, what if we start with one or a few and see how far God takes us? God, Evan and I would eventually find ourselves away to an open table there in the pool hall. And we would continue playing games against each other. Sometimes we would play until midnight if the manager of the Christian Center allowed us to stay. And we would share strategies, we would share stories, we would share some of our faith journey at times as well. Evan, with his knowledge, would share a lot of strategies with me. Sometimes it would be in the form of, are you sure you want to shoot that ball next? But he would also encourage me when I'd make a difficult shot with one of his famous sayings, "Great Scott, what a shot." Well, a few years ago, my friend Evan, who was 88 years old at the time, was hospitalized. And in those final days of Evan's life here, I visited him in that hospital. There was Evan, lying in the hospital bed with a large cancerous tumor inside him. But Evan and I had a very nice, lengthy conversation. What I thought would be a 10 or 15-minute visit turned into an hour and a half pleasant visit with him. As I was getting up to leave and to go out the door, Evan told me, he said, "You know, Dave, I've had 6 nurses here attending to me in these last few days. 6 nurses. And then he continued. He said, so far, I've been able to talk with 5 of them about Jesus. I haven't been able to talk with the 6th one yet. I'm still working on the right time for that one. But that time will come." He continued on, he said, "You know, I'm not sure that I got through to everybody with what I was trying to say. But he said, I know I got through to at least one of them. Because a few minutes after she left the room, she had to come back in and give me a big hug." That was Evan sharing the good news of Jesus Christ in his final days. Now, Evan had plenty of bushel baskets available to him. He was the one lying in the hospital bed. He was the one in pain. He was the one in need of care. He was the one who needed a message of hope. But Evan knew that our gospel text applied just as much today as it did long ago to Jesus' disciples and followers on that mountain. Evan knew he was a baptized child of God, a Christian called to share the good news. Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth," a salt that is to be applied, a salt that is intended to be spread both within and beyond the walls of this renewing house of God we call Salem, a salt to preserve the good news. Jesus says, "You are the light of the world," a light to brighten someone's darkness, a light to provide warmth, a light to feed your neighbors with the gospel of Jesus Christ. As a baptized child of God, let your light of the world shine in glory to God. Amen. We continue with our hymn of the day, number 697.